I hate to put the Northerners and the Southerners against each other.
Against each other?
I mean, I remember the last time we spoke about this was right before Thanksgiving, and we talked about how a lot of Southern homes won't have alcohol at the table for the holidays. Whereas a lot of Northerners, it's like as soon as you get there, you get a cocktail when you walk in. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, what can I get you to drink? You want a glass of wine? What do you want?
Yeah. And maybe this isn't so much a Northern thing as a Southern thing. I think a very Southern thing that I learned when I moved from New Jersey to Little Rock to do my first radio job in 1998, my first morning show radio job. Been doing morning radio since. My skin shows that. Mm-hmm. I realized that they do like Miss Kay, Miss Jennifer, you know, Miss Amanda.
That's how they introduce people. I do it with the kids.
But that's a Southern thing. Like growing up in New Jersey, at least, in New York, and where you're from in Pennsylvania, you grew up with Mrs. Collins, Mrs. Johnson, Mrs. Smith.
They do first names, is what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. It was Miss Amanda. And then growing up where I was, it was, you know, Mrs. Collins, Mrs. Smith, Mrs. McDonald.
I feel like now that I live in the South, and I've always said this, like now that I've been here for, 12 years or so, I am a little bit Yankee, a little bit y'all. Right?
Right.
So for me, now I have adapted and like adjusted. And now I will say like, this is Miss Rowe or this is Miss Stephanie or like for my kids.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to remember last names.
Well, and here's the thing. At some point also, when do you drop the whole Miss and Mrs. thing? And like, even if it's a first name or a last name and you just start calling them, you know, like if you have someone you grew up calling Mrs. Collins, and I'm using that name because I was my neighbor in New Jersey, and her first name is Judy. At some point, I stopped calling her Mrs. Collins and started calling her Judy because I was 25 years old.
No, I don't think I would ever stop calling
Really?
Yeah, I think unless they were adamant about like, hey, call me Roxanne or call me Loren or whatever, then I would still call them Mrs. Marola or Mrs. Strager or whatever.
Do you need approval?
Yes.
Isn't your age approval? You're not a child anymore.
But it's still, they're an elder, like they're older than you are, so it's still a respect thing for me personally.
All right, Big Al, what about you? Do you still call people Miss and Mrs. and Mr. and Mr.?
No, yeah, I think I do, especially if it's somebody I've known since I was a child. I'd be like, that's Miss, you know what I'm saying? That's Miss Tammy.
Yeah.
Like,
you know,
every time I see it, that's Miss Tammy.
I don't always say Miss Julia for our friend that works here. I call her Julia a lot.
Oh, I would say Miss Julia.
I'm 50. I'm probably older than her.
Well, everybody older than me, so I'll be calling everybody Miss.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I am one of those people who is adamant, like, I don't want to be called Miss Loren or Miss Strager. Like, just call me Loren.
Right. So, I do the same.
But if somebody was adamant with me, then I would change it. But otherwise, it's just a respect thing.
Yeah, some parents I'm like, just call me Steve. That's my first name. And some parents are like, no, I would prefer the Mr., you know, or, you know, Mr. Steve. But here's what I want to know. Are you an adult? I would love to talk to people, let's say 25 plus, and you still refer to someone maybe that you knew since you were little as Miss K, or maybe you still call them by their last name. Talking to my buddy Big Perm the other day. Remember, I threw his card in the garbage not by accident, on purpose because he sent it late. And he's like, oh, I spoke with Mrs. McDonald. Remember her? I was like, yes, I remember Mrs. McDonald. And I'm like, her first name is Jennifer. He's like, yeah, but I don't ever call her that. I'm like, dude, if I go up to New Jersey and I see her in our neighborhood, I'm calling her Jennifer. I'm 50.
So
an old lady gonna hit you.
I mean, she's like 78 now, but she's not gonna hit me. She'll be like, she'll answer.
Okay, so
hi, Jennifer.
Even for me, okay, when I was in high school, we had a really young teacher, and his name was Mr. Abinator. Okay, he was only like maybe.
What was his name?
Mr. Abinator.
Sounds fun.
Sounds like something you use to make your abs stronger in the middle of the night.
Abinator.
You need the Abinator.
Well, anyway, Mr. Abinator was only like, 4 years older than we were as seniors, okay? He was like a first-year teacher or whatever. Well, I worked a beer tub in college, and Mr. Abinator used to frequent my beer tub, and he would be, like, he wanted me so badly to call him by his first name, and I couldn't do it. I was like, I can't. You will always be Mr. Abinator because you're older. You were a teacher. And I can't see you any other way.
Oh, you have to. 704-570-9595. Someone says, always respect your elders. I think referring to them by their first name when you get to a certain age is respect. It's respect for you. You're also older now. You know, the respect is a two-way street. You don't have to kiss somebody's ass because they're 80 years old.
Now, hold on. Now, you clocking it.
Right? I mean,
Yeah,
come
you
on.
talking about it now. Now, that's true.
I got to kiss your butt because you're 80? Come on. Your name is Jennifer, and that's what I'm going to call you. I'm almost 50. What do you guys say?